Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling episode of our scary stories. Are you ready to descend into the shadows, where nightmares take form and terror lurks around every corner? Tonight, we journey to the haunting town of Blackwood, where an ancient curse holds its grip, and a young detective must unravel a mystery that threatens to consume all in its path. So gather around, if you dare, for a tale of horror and redemption that will leave you questioning the very nature of fear itself. Now, let the darkness envelop you as we begin the werewolf's curse. A chill wind swept through the cobblestone streets of Blackwood, whispering secrets only the ancient oaks dared to listen to. Shadows danced eerily as Detective Lawrence, a man of sharp features and determined eyes, made his way down the deserted pathway, the echoes of his footsteps mingling with the distant howls of an unseen creature. The small town, usually filled with the laughter of children and chatter of townsfolk, had grown ominously silent. The series of brutal murders had put everyone on edge, forcing them behind locked doors, peering through curtains with fearful glances at the bright full moon that seemed to watch over them like a cold, unblinking eye. As Lawrence approached the town's archives, the scent of musty books filled his nostrils, and the creaking of the massive wooden door sent a shiver down his spine. He was a stranger here, recently transferred from the bustling city, and the unease of the townspeople weighed heavily on his shoulders. In the dimly lit room, rows of ancient texts and yellowed newspapers lined the towering shelves. The air was thick with history, stories of generations that had come and gone, but whose secrets lingered, trapped within the walls. Mrs. Thorne, the elderly librarian, greeted Lawrence with a knowing look. Her eyes, gray and clouded with age, held a wisdom that seemed almost otherworldly. Her voice was soft as she spoke, but it carried an unmistakable weight. "You're here for the murders, aren't you, Detective Lawrence?" she asked, her words tinged with an inexplicable sorrow. Lawrence, slightly taken aback, nodded. "Yes, Mrs. Thorne. I'm looking for any information that might help me find the killer." She sighed, leading him to a dusty corner filled with archaic books on local folklore and legends. "I fear, young man, that what you seek is not a mere killer, but something far more terrifying." Lawrence's brow furrowed as he scanned the titles. "What do you mean?" "The full moon, the savagery of the attacks, the fear in the eyes of the townsfolk," Mrs. Thorne said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's all happened before, many generations ago. The town of Blackwood is under a curse, Detective. A curse that turns man into beast." He looked at her, incredulous yet intrigued. "A werewolf, you mean?" Mrs. Thorne nodded, her hand trembling as she handed him a leather-bound book filled with handwritten notes and sketches. "Read this, and you will understand. But beware, Detective Lawrence, for the path you tread is fraught with danger. The beast is not just a mindless killer, it's a manifestation of something dark and primal, and it will not rest until it has claimed another victim." Lawrence's heart pounded in his chest as he opened the book, his mind racing with the possibilities. The room seemed to grow colder, the shadows deeper, as he immersed himself in the chilling accounts of the werewolf's curse that had once terrorized Blackwood. Outside, the wind howled mournfully, and the full moon cast an ethereal glow over the town, as if bearing witness to a tale that was once again unfolding, a tale of terror, mystery, and an ancient curse that had awakened from its slumber. And somewhere in the darkness, hidden from sight, a pair of glowing eyes watched, waiting for the time to strike, as the curse of the werewolf began to stir, hungry for blood. The soft glow of a candle flickered, casting long shadows across the walls of Mrs. Thorne's sitting room. Rain tapped persistently at the windows, but inside the warm aroma of herbal tea filled the air. Detective Lawrence's mind was still reeling from the ancient book, his thoughts a whirlwind of disbelief and curiosity. Mrs. Thorne, her wrinkled hands wrapped around her teacup, looked into Lawrence's eyes. "You're troubled, young man. The story of the curse has taken hold of you, hasn't it?" "I must admit," Lawrence replied, his voice filled with uncertainty, "it's all a bit fantastical. Werewolves, curses. How can I be sure this isn't just a myth?" The old woman leaned back, her gaze distant as though she were peering into the very fabric of time. "The curse is as real as you or I, Detective. You must understand the history of Blackwood to comprehend its power." In her lilting voice, she began to recount a tale that took them back centuries to the town's founding days. A man, cursed by a vengeful sorceress for his wicked deeds, was transformed into a werewolf. Bound to the town and its bloodline, the curse lay dormant, only to awaken when certain conditions were met. The founder's family, Mrs. Thorne explained, her voice trembling, held the secret to the curse. The amulet you found in the archives is a key, a connection to the beast's very soul. Lawrence's heart skipped a beat as he thought of the amulet, its intricate design, the strange aura it seemed to emanate. What must I do? You must go to the Founder's Manor, she said, her eyes filled with urgency. There, hidden away in the shadows of history, you may find the answers you seek. The town's Founder's Manor was a brooding structure at the edge of Blackwood, hidden by overgrown foliage, its windows dark and lifeless. As Lawrence approached the ancient building, a feeling of dread settled over him. The house seemed to breathe, its very walls whispering secrets as the rain continued to patter against the roof. Inside, the air was thick with decay, the furniture covered in dust, untouched by time. Paintings of the Founder's family, their eyes filled with a haunting sadness, lined the dimly lit hallways. Each step Lawrence took seemed to echo in the emptiness, as though the house itself were listening. He finally came upon a study filled with ancient tomes and scrolls. Here, the history of Blackwood lay bare, the words on the parchment seeming to leap out at him, filled with warnings and prophecies. But it was a hidden drawer concealed beneath the wooden desk that held the true mystery. Within it, Lawrence found letters, personal confessions of the Founder's family, detailing the struggle with the curse, the burden they bore, the sacrifices made. The moon peeked through the storm clouds, casting an eerie glow over the room as Lawrence read. The letters spoke of betrayal, love, and an unending battle with the darkness within. The amulet's purpose became clear, a tool to contain the werewolf's power, but also a link that could be exploited. Outside, the wind moaned, a mournful cry that seemed to carry with it the very pain and suffering of generations past. Lawrence felt a chill run down his spine, a realization that the curse was no mere tale. It was alive, a part of Blackwood's very soul. His thoughts were interrupted by the news of another murder, a scream that reverberated through the night, a reminder that the werewolf was not just a specter of the past, but a present and deadly reality. Time was running out, and the hunter was becoming the hunted. The curse was awakening, the beast stirring, and the town of Blackwood stood on the brink of a terror that threatened to consume all in its path. The moon was a glowing orb in the night sky, casting its silvery light over Blackwood, where fear now stalked the streets. The latest murder had sent shockwaves through the town, the brutality of the attack a horrifying reminder of the werewolf's insatiable hunger. Detective Lawrence stood before the crime scene, the torn remnants of what was once a human life, a gruesome testament to the monster's savagery. The bite marks, the ferocity of the assault, it all pointed to the terrifying truth. The curse was real, and the werewolf was no longer a mere legend. Officer Williams, a stout man with kind eyes, approached Lawrence, his face pale. "Detective, I've never seen anything like this. It's like something out of a nightmare." Lawrence looked at him, the weight of the investigation heavy on his shoulders. "It's worse than a nightmare, Williams. It's a living horror, and we must stop it." The townsfolk were in a panic, doors locked, windows shuttered, the laughter and joy of Blackwood replaced by an oppressive silence. A local church had become a refuge, its pews filled with praying souls seeking solace. Father O'Brien, a gentle yet firm presence, spoke to the gathered masses, his words filled with hope and conviction. "We must stand together, my children. We must not let fear divide us. The evil that haunts our streets can be vanquished, but we must have faith." As the congregation bowed their heads, Lawrence couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The church's stained glass windows depicted scenes of battle and triumph, but within them, hidden away, he saw a symbol, a wolf's head, the same symbol that adorned the amulet. A sudden realization struck him. The church, the town, the very foundations of Blackwood were entwined with the werewolf's curse. It was not just a story, but a living part of their history, woven into the very fabric of their lives. He sought Father O'Brien's counsel, the wise old priest listening intently as Lawrence explained his discoveries. The church, the amulet, the Founder's Manor, all connected to the curse. But how, Father? How do we stop it? Father O'Brien looked at him, his eyes filled with a somber understanding. The curse is not merely a transformation, Detective. It's a reflection of our darkest selves, our hidden desires and fears. To defeat it, you must understand it. You must face it. As the night wore on, Lawrence delved deeper into the town's secrets, piecing together the puzzle. The werewolf's attacks were not random, they were targeted, each victim a link to the town's past, a connection to the curse. The fear in Blackwood grew, the streets empty, the once lively market square now a desolate place where the wind howled like a forlorn ghost. The very air seemed to tremble with anticipation, the town holding its breath as the hunter's moon loomed large. In the hidden chambers of the church, Lawrence discovered ancient texts, rituals, and incantations. The path to defeating the werewolf was laid out, a battle of wills, a confrontation with the darkness within. As the clock ticked away, the final night of the hunter's moon approached, a night when the werewolf would be at its most powerful, its most ferocious. The game of cat and mouse was nearing its end, the lines between hunter and hunted blurring. The stakes were high, and the town of Blackwood teetered on the edge of chaos. The werewolf's curse was not just a tale to frighten children. It was a living, breathing terror that had awakened, its fangs bared, ready to strike. And as the moon reached its zenith, the battle for Blackwood's soul was about to begin. The chimes of the old town clock rang out, their tone resonating through the darkened streets of Blackwood. It was midnight, and the final night of the hunter's moon had arrived. Fear and anticipation mingled in the air, a storm of emotions that hung heavy over the town. In the depths of the church's secret chamber, Detective Lawrence, Father O'Brien, and Officer Williams prepared for the ritual that would confront the werewolf. Ancient runes were etched on the floor, candles flickering with a ghostly glow as they arranged the symbols, guided by the age-old texts. The werewolf's strength lies in its connection to the curse, Father O'Brien explained, his voice steady yet filled with an underlying tension. We must sever that connection, force it to face its own darkness. Lawrence's hands trembled as he held the amulet, its presence a constant reminder of the horror that awaited them. He looked at Williams, whose determined expression betrayed no hint of the fear he must have been feeling. We must be strong, Lawrence said, steeling himself. We must face this terror together. Blackwood depends on us. As the ritual began, the church's walls seemed to close in, the shadows growing longer, the very air charged with a mystical energy. The words of the incantation echoed through the chamber, their ancient language a haunting melody that sent shivers down their spines. Outside, the moon shone with an eerie brightness, casting a silvery sheen over the rooftops and alleys. The town was silent, the inhabitants hiding away, waiting for the night to pass, praying for salvation. But in the darkened forest that surrounded Blackwood, something was stirring. The werewolf, its senses heightened by the hunter's moon, felt a pull, an irresistible force that drew it towards the church. Its eyes glowed with a feral intensity, its body quivering with a primal hunger. The ritual was calling it, challenging it, and the beast responded with a howl that reverberated through the night, a call to battle. Inside the chamber, the ritual reached its climax, the air crackling with unseen power. Lawrence, Father O'Brien, and Williams stood in a triangle, their voices united, their wills focused on the task at hand. The werewolf's howl reached them, a sound that struck terror into their hearts, but they pressed on, the incantation growing louder, more forceful. The beast is coming, Father O'Brien warned, his eyes wild with a mix of fear and determination. We must be ready. The church's doors burst open, the wind howling through the sanctuary as the werewolf entered, its form a dark silhouette against the moonlit night. Its snarl was a promise of violence, its eyes a reflection of pure malevolence. The battle had begun. In the chamber, the confrontation was a struggle of wills, a clash of light and darkness. The werewolf lunged, its claws slashing, its teeth bared, but the ritual held it at bay, the ancient words a barrier that it could not cross. Lawrence faced the beast, his heart pounding, his mind focused on the task at hand. The werewolf's eyes met his, a recognition there, a connection that went beyond the physical. The curse was not just a transformation, it was a mirror, a reflection of the darkest parts of the human soul. They fought, the werewolf's fury matched by Lawrence's determination, the chamber a battleground where two worlds collided. The ritual reached its crescendo, the words a thunderous roar that shook the very foundations of the church. The werewolf howled in agony, its form writhing, its connection to the curse weakening. With one final push, Lawrence broke through, the amulet's power a beacon that severed the link, forcing the werewolf to face itself, to confront its own darkness. The beast collapsed, its form shifting, changing, the curse lifted. The battle was over, but the night was not yet done. The moon still hung in the sky, a silent witness to the events that had transpired. Blackwood was safe, but the scars would remain, a reminder of the terror that had stalked its streets, the darkness that had lurked in the shadows. The werewolf's curse had been vanquished, but the questions remained, the mysteries unresolved. The night was still young, and the secrets of Blackwood were far from revealed. The rays of the early morning sun began to pierce through the dense canopy of Blackwood Forest, a new day dawning after the terrifying night. The town slowly awakened, the silence of fear giving way to whispers of disbelief and awe. In the aftermath of the battle, Detective Lawrence found himself unable to shake off a nagging sense of unease. The werewolf was defeated, the curse lifted, but the mystery was far from solved. Father O'Brien stood beside him in the chamber, the remnants of the ritual still evident, the air tinged with a lingering energy. "You've done it, Detective. You've saved Blackwood. But I sense that you have doubts." Lawrence looked at the priest, his eyes clouded with questions. "The curse is broken, the werewolf is no more. But who was the werewolf? What was its connection to the town's founder? Why were those specific victims chosen?" Father O'Brien sighed, a look of sorrow in his eyes. "The curse of the werewolf is as much a mystery of the human soul as it is a supernatural phenomenon. It's a reflection of our darkest desires, our hidden fears. Perhaps the answers lie in the town's history. The ancient texts and documents in the chamber held clues, fragments of a story that spanned centuries. Lawrence delved into them, his mind hungry for answers, his detective instincts driving him to unravel the truth. He discovered the dark legacy of Blackwood's founder, a man tormented by guilt and shame, his actions a catalyst for the curse. The town's history was marred by betrayal, greed, and vengeance, the werewolf's victims all connected to that twisted past. Officer Williams joined the investigation, his loyalty and determination an invaluable asset. Together, they uncovered the layers of deceit and secrets that had festered in the shadows of Blackwood. They learned of a tragic love story, a broken promise that had given birth to the curse. They unearthed the hidden connections between the victims, a web of relationships that tied them to the town's founder, each one a symbol of his sins, each one a target of the werewolf's rage. The identity of the werewolf remained elusive, a mystery that seemed to defy explanation. But as Lawrence and Williams dug deeper, they stumbled upon a hidden diary, its pages filled with confessions and revelations. The werewolf was not a stranger, not an outsider. It was one of their own, a resident of Blackwood, a person consumed by the curse, driven to madness by the weight of the town's sins. The diary's words were a cry for understanding, a plea for forgiveness. The werewolf's true identity was a shock, a revelation that sent waves of disbelief through the town. It was a face they all knew, a person they had trusted, a soul forever altered by the curse's power. The truth was a painful burden, a wound that would take time to heal. Blackwood's residents were forced to confront their own darkness, their own guilt. The town's facades were shattered, the masks removed. But in that painful honesty, in that willingness to face the truth, there was hope. The curse was broken, the werewolf's reign of terror ended, but the real victory was in the understanding, the compassion, the willingness to forgive. The scars would remain, the memories would linger, but Blackwood had emerged from the shadows, its soul cleansed, its heart open. The hunter's moon had set, the night had passed, but the journey was far from over. The path to redemption was a long one, filled with challenges and trials. But they were ready to walk it, together, their eyes clear, their hearts unburdened. They had faced the darkness, and they had emerged stronger, wiser, more human. The werewolf's curse was no more, but the lessons it had taught would resonate through the ages, a timeless tale of fear, love, and redemption. The story of Blackwood was not a horror to be forgotten. It was a parable to be cherished, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. The late autumn sun hung low in the sky, casting a soft golden light over the town of Blackwood. The previous days had been a whirlwind of emotions, revelations, and transformations. The town, once gripped by fear, was beginning to heal. Detective Lawrence stood on the porch of his home, sipping his morning coffee, reflecting on the events that had transpired. The werewolf's curse had been a harrowing journey through the darkest corners of human nature. He had learned more about himself and the people of Blackwood than he had ever imagined. Officer Williams joined him, handing him a newspaper. The headlines were ablaze with the werewolf's story, the details sensationalized, the truth obscured by the thrill of horror. But to Lawrence and Williams, the real story was far more profound. They had seen the face of the werewolf, understood its pain, its anger, its longing for redemption. They had faced their own fears, their own guilt, their own humanity. "The town's going to need time to heal," Williams remarked, his voice tinged with sadness. "Yes," Lawrence agreed, "but we'll heal together." The werewolf's curse was not just about terror. It was a reflection of our own souls. It showed us what we could become if we let our fears, our hatred, our greed consume us. They looked out at the town, the houses bathed in the warm glow of the sun, the people going about their lives, changed but stronger. In the heart of Blackwood, a memorial was being erected, a tribute to the victims, a reminder of the lessons learned. It was a symbol of the town's willingness to face the truth, to embrace its history, to grow. At the church, Father O'Brien was preparing for a special service, a celebration of hope, forgiveness, and new beginnings. He knew that the scars of the past would not vanish overnight, but he believed in the power of faith, love, and community. The children of Blackwood were returning to school, their innocence somewhat lost, but their understanding of the world deepened. They were the future, the promise of a new dawn, the bearers of wisdom passed down through generations. The elders of the town, once keepers of secrets, were now voices of wisdom, sharing their experiences, their mistakes, their lessons. They were the link to the past, the guides to the future. In the depths of Blackwood Forest, where the werewolf had once roamed, nature was reclaiming its realm. The trees were healing, the wildlife returning, the balance restored. The werewolf's howl was no longer a sound of terror. It was a cry of understanding, a song of redemption. It echoed through the hills, a reminder of the darkness and the light, the pain and the healing, the fear and the courage. As the sun set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Detective Lawrence felt a sense of peace. The nightmare was over, but the journey had just begun. He knew that the story of the werewolf's curse would be passed down, not as a tale of horror, but as a lesson of humanity. It was a story of redemption, empathy, and the power of truth. In the end, the werewolf was not a monster. It was a mirror, reflecting the very essence of what it means to be human. Blackwood had faced its demons and emerged triumphant, not through violence or hatred, but through understanding, compassion, and love. The moon would rise again, the seasons would change, but the town of Blackwood would never be the same. The werewolf's curse had left its mark, but it had also illuminated the path to a brighter, more enlightened future. A new dawn was breaking, and Blackwood was ready to embrace it, forever changed, forever stronger, forever wiser. The werewolf's curse was no longer a shadow. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a timeless story that would resonate through the ages. And so, dear listeners, the tale of the werewolf's curse comes to an end, leaving behind a haunting melody of understanding, compassion, and the profound nature of our own humanity. What lurks within us all, hidden behind the facade of normality. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey. If you've enjoyed your descent into the shadows, be sure to subscribe to our scary stories for more tales of terror and intrigue. Until next time, remember, the darkness is never truly gone. It merely waits, patient and eternal. Sleep well. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.